It is really an absolute. Oh, now it's on? If you need hearing assisting devices, Drew can help you figure out how to get them and not blow your ears out using them. Sorry about that, Drew. All right, we'll try again. It is our great honor to welcome you this night as we gather to explore the intersection of justice, faith, and community. We are especially privileged to be joined by a distinguished guest who has dedicated much of his life and work to advancing these very ideals, Hannibal Johnson. Mr. Johnson is a Harvard Law School graduate, an acclaimed author, attorney, and consultant. He has taught at the University of Tulsa College of Law, Oklahoma State University, and the University of Oklahoma, all my favorites. Many of you may know him as the chair of the Education Committee of the 1921 Race Massacre Centennial Commission and as the local curator for Greenwood Rising, a world-class history center dedicated to preserving and honoring the legacy of Black Wall Street. His deep commitment to justice and community has earned him numerous accolades, including induction into the Oklahoma Historians Hall of Fame, the Tulsa Hall of Fame, and the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. All my favorites, too. In addition to his work on Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Race Massacre, Mr. Johnson has authored several influential books on this subject. Earlier this year, he released his latest book titled 10 Ways We Can Advance Social Justice Without Destroying One Another, which emphasizes social justice as a lifelong pursuit, one that challenges us, engages us, and calls us into deeper introspection and advocacy. Tonight, we are fortunate enough to hear directly from Mr. Johnson as he guides us in a conversation that speaks to the heart of what it means to seek justice and community through the lens of faith. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Hannibal B. Johnson. So this evening is, I guess, sponsored by Fellowship's Reconciling in Christ team here at Fellowship. And that group has worked on social justice issues for several years now. And they put together some really nice questions for you. So I've tried to organize them. And we hope to save a little bit of time at the end for question and answers. So hopefully they'll be nice. We'll see. We'll start easy. How about that? All right. Can you share with us a little more about your personal journey? What brought you to this work, and how have your experiences shaped your approach to social justice?
So one of the old adages I think is really relevant for me is service is the rent we pay for a living. So I always had that modeling at home that sort of impelled me to be engaged with the community, look for things that could be improved, and look at myself and see what I had to offer to be a change agent.
So here's your new book. There's lots up here. You can buy them for $20, straight from the man himself, afterwards. And I think he might even sign it for you.
Yes.
For an extra $10. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Who did you write 10 Ways We Can Advance Social Justice for, and who do you hope will be most impacted by it?
It's written for anybody who wants to be a change agent and a difference maker, but feels unable to make a significant difference. So the idea is that a lot of the social justice issues that we face seem to be so gargantuan, so intractable, that we become apathetic. We become almost catatonic, unable to engage. And so the idea of this book is to give people some simple ways that you can engage around the issues that matter to you.
So you don't have to solve them all at once, all at the same time.
No. The idea is that most change happens incrementally, and there are things that each of us can contribute to the change that we would like to see. And this is, it's not a partisan issue. It's political, but it's not partisan. And that's part of what I think is important to understand.
I say those words a lot, that as Christians, we are called to be political, but not partisan. Will you talk a little bit more about that?
So when I say it's political, I mean, if you want real change, systemic change, which is a change that really matters, then you only get that by affecting change on policy. You only get change on policy if you engaged in politics in some sense of the word. So if you influence your school board member, or if you are the school board member, if you influence the legislature, or you are a legislator, if you influence the state senator or the president, those are people in positions that directly impact the policies that create or sustain the systems that are often problematic in terms of social justice. So it may sound good to say, oh, I'm not interested in politics, but politics is interested in you, whether you're interested in it or not. It affects your life tremendously. So you'd be advised to be engaged in politics at some level to understand the policies, practices, systems that affect you and the people that you care about.
Great, thank you. At the beginning of chapter 1, you give 2 definitions, one for social and one for justice. You define social as relating to society or its organization, similar to communal, community, or the collective, and justice as just behavior or treatment. I think I have a typo. Justice, peace, and genuine respect for people. So can you talk a little bit more about what social justice is and why social justice should matter to people of faith?
Fundamentally, social justice is about the recognition of our shared humanity. So I do a lot of work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion realm. And people who understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion really is understand that fundamentally it's about getting people in touch with their shared humanity. Recognizing that, yes, there are differences between and among us, but at a fundamental level, what we share is a humanity that's deserving of solicitude and respect. So that's the sort of justice piece. And for me, we know there's social justice when the disparities that we know exist in all the indicators of well-being, like employment, housing, the criminal justice system, and on and on. When those disparities are eliminated, then we have social justice. So in that sense, social justice is aspirational. like the values embedded in our Constitution, they're aspirational. We may never live them fully out 100%, but they're something that we work toward. So we're constantly working toward these aspirational goals. We're constantly working toward social justice.
You talked a little bit about DEI already just a second ago, and in your book you talk a lot about DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. In today's climate, where companies are cutting DEI programs and schools are being instructed not to teach it, how do you see the role of DEI moving forward? Why is it still important, and how can we continue to champion diversity, equity, and inclusion in such a challenging time as this?
Unfortunately, a lot of the backlash against DEI is grounded in mis and disinformation. It comes from people who don't even understand the basic rudiments of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which, as I said earlier, fundamentally, it's about our shared humanity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not a way of attacking white men, right? So if you ever go to one of my sessions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, you leave with the sense that there's a lot we can learn from other people who are different from ourselves, but fundamentally, we're all better off working together and understanding one another. That's all DEI is. That's all it is. And so I think it's important for corporations and others, educational institutions, rather than retreat when under attack, to actually help demystify what DEI fundamentally is all about.
I've come to think that, like, you know, there's just always a new buzzword or always a new bad word, right?
Yes.
And DEI is currently the new bad word.
Right up there with woke.
Right up there with woke, yes.
Can I talk about woke?
Oh, yeah, please do.
So, it's just so unfortunate. Woke is a term that originated in the black community. Woke means that you are sensitized to the plight of people other than yourself, that you have empathy, and that you want social justice. That's what woke means. So there's been this misappropriation of the word, a mischaracterization of the concept, and then misinformation spread about what that construct is being used for. The three misses, I say: misappropriation, mischaracterization, misinformation. And I'm not ready to give up the word. So you can say that I'm woke, and I'm happy with that, because I know what the true meaning of the word is, right? It doesn't have anything to do with being overly sensitive or demanding that other people walk on eggshells for you. That's not the concept. The concept fundamentally is about compassion and empathy for other people.
I have now received 2 books in the mail. They have yellow covers, and the title of the book is Jesus Ain't Woke. And I don't know who sends them to me, but somebody, and I just laugh, because I think if anybody was woke, it was Jesus, right? With that definition?
Jesus is woke.
I think he's pretty woke. All right. In your book, you also talk about the need for people to know, care, and act. Especially in the introduction, it just really focuses the whole book that we are called to know, care, and act. So after the surge of interest following both the George Floyd murder and the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, what key things do you think people, especially white allies, what do we need to know today?
We need to know our unvarnished history as Americans. I know it's really difficult for some folks. We have some really salutary aspects of our history. We have some really sad moments in our history. We can't make any of that stuff go away. Maya Angelou says, our history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, it need not be lived again. So we need to know all aspects of our history and understand that the past is part of our present. It's an active part of our present. It determined where we are and who we are today.
Thank you. Okay, here's where I needed my book. I don't want to get it confused with yours because mine is dog-eared
Okay.
and underlined. If you buy my book, please give it back to me. All right. In your book, you give us 10 ways to advance social justice. So for the people who haven't had a chance to read it yet, I thought I'd read these 10, and then I have a question for you about them, okay? The 10 ways we can advance social justice are: speak truth, listen intently, show up, engage with your community, seek to serve, align with allies, play politics, delve into diversity, equity, and inclusion, pledge allegiance, and walk the walk. So, of these 10, which do you believe churches or religious organizations should prioritize?
I can't say all of them, I guess. Well, maybe number 10.
Okay.
You know, walk the walk is about integrity. And if you're a church, then it seems to me that one of your fundamental core values ought to be integrity. And so, without getting, well, I won't get political about it, but I just
can. We'll let you.
So,
we're safe, right?
So, unfortunately, I think, specifically Christianity in the United States is suffering because some folks are misusing and abusing Christianity for individual and political purposes. Does that make sense? So that's troubling, and that's a lack of integrity.
Side note, if you haven't watched Bad Faith, check it out.
And I have. I've seen it, yeah.
Okay. Any others you think would be important for us?
The first one about speaking truth is so important, because speaking truth in the digital age and the internet age has to do with looking to a variety of sources, vetting your information, being careful before you spread information. It's all that. If you're going to speak truth, then you have an obligation to discern truth, which is going to require a little bit of work on your part, especially if you're going to disseminate the information.
And say Jesus ain't woke.
That's right.
Yeah.
True.
All right, one more. Give us one more.
Well, you know, since as a church, you can't be politically partisan, but again, we're not really talking about political partisanship. We're talking about engaging with people who make policy. So if you want to turbocharge your social justice efforts, you have to be engaged in politics in the sort of greater sense of the word, understanding who's making decisions that affect these major dynamics in society. How do you impact those people? How do you let your voice be heard by those key people who are making these important decisions? So politics is important in that sense, as opposed to partisan politics in the sense I was talking about earlier.
fellowship is a part of an organization called Action here in Tulsa that is a coalition of different organizations, some religious, some just nonprofit. And we learn in Action that there are two ways that we can have power. You have money, like organized money, or organized people. And so we've learned how to engage in politics in that way as organizing people to help push through the social justice or the changes that we see fit with our community stories and our faith to make change happen. So I definitely see how that works together and how people of faith are called to make the world a better place on behalf of our neighbors, right?
Absolutely. That's what it's all about, really.
Yeah. Okay. What do you hope to accomplish through this book in terms of your broader work? What impacts are you currently striving towards in your work with our community and beyond? So what are you up to now? Really?
It's not? Okay.
Can you hear me, Bishop Becca? A little bit? Oh, that's true. I haven't felt like this is working, but they keep telling me it is. But it's not.
Doesn't sound like it, no. There you go, yeah. Yeah, take it from the top. We'll start all over.
Hopefully we have sound on the live stream. So if you missed the first half, you can go to our YouTube page and catch it this evening. All right, well, we're only on question number 7, so you guys can hit the other 6 somewhere else. What do you hope to accomplish through this book in terms of your broader work? What impacts are you currently striving towards in your work in our community now and beyond?
So I just want more people to be engaged, more people to understand that they have agency, that they have capacity to make change, to make more people feel comfortable with the idea of using their agency to work on the problems that they deem most pressing. So I'm still very much involved with Greenwood Rising, the Black Wall Street History Center. I'm on the board of directors there. And we still consider ourselves a startup. I mean, it's still getting things running, and the board members are more involved than we want to be ultimately, but it'll work out. I am chairing the Commemoration Fund, which, I don't know if you know about the Commemoration Fund, but you're familiar with the Zarrow families. There were 2 Zarrow family foundations, and then those 2 foundations had a pool of money together. And they decided in the wake of George Floyd in 2020, Judy Kishner, that they would use the monies in that joint foundation to work on social justice issues, improvements in communities of color. So there was a pool of roughly $5.5 million, and they selected an advisory board consisting only of people of color, and they empowered that board to make decisions about how that money would be spent. So as a board, we decided that we basically are spending $1 million a year awarding grants to 501c3 organizations that serve communities of color. And part of the application process requires those organizations to tell us, who's in leadership. Are people of color represented in leadership in your organization? Things that indicate that those organizations are themselves empowering people of color. So this will be our 5th year, and it's great. I mean, it's amazing that the Zeros really ceded authority over almost $6 million for this group of advisors to say, this is how we're going to spend it. We're going to spend it over a term of 5 years. We created the application process, and we hired an executive director or a director to sort of run the internal mechanisms of the process. It's been very successful. So really pleased about that, because it's making an impact, not just in terms of providing money to communities of color, but in terms of growing and developing leadership within organizations whose mission it is to serve communities of color.
Can you tell us about any of those grants? Like, give us some examples of
So
who have
one
received
example of a recurring recipient is an organization called Urban Coders Guild. So it's an entity, a 501c3, that teaches primarily Black teenagers coding, app development, and all that. And so that they have a marketable skill. As they're leaving high school, they already have the marketable skill. So they want to go into to the job market, they can. But they're also honing their skills for college as well. So Urban Coders Guild is one. We've funded a couple of organizations that serve the Latinx community in terms of cultural offerings. One of the organizations provides food and other necessities in the Latinx community. So those are a couple of examples.
Sounds like important work. All right. How can people who want to be allies engage in ways that are truly helpful and supportive to those who are different from them? As we look out there's a lot of white folk. So how can we engage in ways that is truly helpful?
Well, I think the first thing is to refrain from assuming that you know what's best for somebody who's not you. I mean, so you gotta have relationships with people who are not like you, such that you can ask them what it is that they feel is most needed, right? So it's about engaging at a place of need at a time when you're invited and welcome, and to sort of constantly be in relationship with whatever it is you're doing, so you can sort of gauge how it's going.
And I find, like, being a white person who is trying to do the work, there's a delicate balance between me doing my own work, and we talk about, like, it's not a person of color's job to teach me or do my work. Does that make sense? Will you talk a little bit about that balance between, because I hear a lot of back and forth about all of that.
That's an interesting dynamic. I mean, I sort of feel like it is my job. If you're sincere and you want to know, then it is my job to help you. To the extent that I can help you understand, it is my job to do that. I mean, I should do that. I can understand how it can be tedious, but I also understand that if you have the heart for doing this work and you're seeking to better understand something that I can help you understand, then it's my obligation, I think, to help you.
And I'm sure you've, like, over the years have figured out how to have boundaries around that and create boundaries around yourself. So if you are too exhausted to have that conversation with somebody, like, it's okay to be like, not today, sister.
Yeah, and that mostly comes from me in terms of community service on boards and things like that. I have decided that I need to say, years ago actually, I decided I need to say no more often. And I say no, I need to say no more often, both for me and for the organization that's asking me. Because if I'm not really into it and don't have the time, then it's better for them to find somebody else. So what I've decided lately is if I'm asked to do something and my plate is full or for whatever reason I don't want to do it, and I know that they're looking specifically for a person of color because they're interested in diversity and all that sort of stuff, then I try to provide some names for them and some suggestions because I am not the only black male person in the world. There are other people who can do that. And there are other people who are fully qualified to do it and are younger than me and are more eager than me for some of these positions, and so they should do it.
And it gives them more experience
Right.
to
And we're
grow
developing
to.
a reservoir of talent,
Right.
right?
Yeah. All right, can we talk about another bad word?
Depends on what it is.
What are your thoughts on reparations? Are they appropriate, and what form should they take in terms of justice for marginalized communities?
So reparations are a really important topic. And I've said on a number of occasions, I have this sort of three-part formula for racial reconciliation. It involves acknowledgement, apology, and atonement. And atonement is a word that really subsumes the concept of reparations. Atonement means making amends, repairing damage, as reparations is essentially the same thing. Part of the problem with reparations locally and elsewhere is that there are some people who have hijacked the term and narrowed its definition such that it's not palatable to some people. So reparations means more than providing cash payments to particular individuals based on particular circumstance. So reparations is, again, that broad concept of how do we make amends, how do we repair damage? There are a number of ways you can do that, and a lot of those ways are communal. For me, for years, I said that when I think about the kinds of reparations I'd like to see with regard to the massacre, my top priority was curriculum reform. Change the curriculum because it has transgenerational impact. We fundamentally need everybody to know the truth about what's happened in the community so that we can move forward together. So that's a form of reparations. Monuments and memorials are a form of reparations. Greenwood Rising, I think, is a form of reparation. All these things are things that we do to repair the damage and make amends for the past, which is not to say that cash payments to some people might be appropriate. They very well may be appropriate. But if that's the be-all and end-all, then we cut the conversation off and eliminate people from the conversation who might be able to provide broader types of repair. Because some people aren't going to be interested in cash payments. Okay, I get it. I may not agree with that, but I understand that. So what is it that you could do that would be meaningful? There are some communal things that can be done. So I make the difference between what I call transfers, which is paying cash payments to particular individuals in certain circumstances, and investments, which are sort of communal types of reparations that improve both the damaged community and the community writ large.
I like how you talked about Greenwood Rising being like a part of reparations. Yeah, that's beautiful. Speaking of Tulsa and what's happening here and the ways that we're trying to navigate those waters, what initiatives or movements in Tulsa excite you right now? What positive change have you seen since the 100-year commemoration of the race massacre?
Well, Greenwood Rising is drawing visitors from all over the world. We've gotten great reviews in the New York Times and other national and international publications. It's driven cultural tourism, so the entrepreneurs and the business folks down in the Greenwood district are getting more foot traffic, so that's been really great. I am very much encouraged by Mayor Bynum's commitment to the mass graves investigation, saying, you know, if there was a murder in Tulsa, if it happened yesterday or 103 years ago, we need to solve it. We need to deal with it. And so I don't know what's going to come of that, but his commitment to that is really, really important. Tulsa has always impressed me in terms of philanthropy generally, and the work of, as we know, the Kaiser Foundation has done all sorts of stuff to build all aspects and all sectors of the community, including the Greenwood District. We've invested in a lot of stuff in the Greenwood District, so I'm real pleased with that. There are a lot of things to be done still, but there's a lot that is being done. And one of the things that I see sometimes I find unfortunate is, as we work to improve our community and solve problems that we all know we have, it's important for many people in the community to acknowledge the things that we have done and are doing, right? It's important to be optimistic and positive as we acknowledge the deficits that we have, right? Because the work is hard. I mean, it's easy to get down, but we've done some really important stuff. We've made important progress. I think of social justice and the issues that we face as chronic. When I say chronic, I mean, I don't see these things as things that are going to be solved in my lifetime. I just don't see it that way. I think we have to be dedicated to the work and understand that it's continuous work, that we improve things for some people, but the work goes on. And some of the challenges that we face are challenges of human nature. There are always going to be haters, you know, and there will always be problems. And so we have to understand that we can't solve every problem, but we can solve some problems, and that we can start our work closest to where we are. Arthur Ashe has a famous adage: start where you are, use what you have, do what you can.
And I like the idea of celebrating what the work that has been done.
Right.
I think about, so I've been educated, my entire education has happened within an hour of Tulsa, right? From kindergarten all the way through my bachelor's degree within an hour from Tulsa. And I never once learned about the Tulsa Race Massacre. It wasn't until I went to seminary that I really learned about the Tulsa Race Massacre. And that floored me, but I think it's different now. Like this generation, these kids in high school today, because I know my kids just graduated high school not too long ago, they are learning about it in school.
It's certainly different in Tulsa Public Schools.
Yeah.
So all Tulsa Public Schools 8th graders go to Greenwood Rising as a field trip, for example. Tulsa Public Schools has done a great job of integrating this history from grades K through 12 at age-appropriate levels in a variety of disciplines in the curriculum. So that Tulsa Public Schools has really been a model for how to address what I call hard history.
And it's not getting easier to address hard history.
No.
For teachers. Yeah.
No. Unfortunately, I don't want to go.
Okay.
No, our state superintendent, bless his heart.
Bless his heart. Bless his heart.
He leaves so much to be desired. he's a roadblock to a lot of the progress that we need to make, unfortunately. And again, I don't think that needs to be a politically partisan statement. I mean, I just think he is. We could do better. It could be it could be a Republican person. That's fine, but he's not the right person for the job.
Yeah. He definitely is making things harder on our teachers.
Right.
And we don't have very many of them anyway, so.
Right.
Yeah.
We're using them. Yeah. So
He asked to share the Mayo story that's in the book.
I'll just give a condensed version of it. This was maybe 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. But at Mayo Demonstration School, some teachers got together. They were teaching the history of the Greenwood District and the massacre. They gave their students a sort of long-term project to build a scale model of the Greenwood District. Students were, students at that age, it was like the 5th grade, I think, very meticulous in developing this model of the Greenwood District. They put a lot of time and effort into it. They finished it, and they were so proud. And they went home that afternoon, and the teachers stayed behind in the classroom. Teachers got together, and they burned the scale model that the students had created. And the students came back the next day, and of course, they were devastated because they had put all this time and energy into creating this beautiful model of the Greenwood District. But then the teachers, it's a learning opportunity. The teacher said, this was a model. What if this had been your house or your church and your family that was destroyed by a fire, by a mob, like what really happened in the massacre in 1921? And then years later, one of the students who was in that class was a senior at Booker T, and she was interviewed by Tulsa World. And she said that was one of the most impacting, profound educational experiences of her lifetime to that point. And you can see why. She'll never forget that. Never forget it. Great teachers. I don't know if they would do that in 2024, probably not, for fear of legal ramifications. And, with our superintendent, of course, he would blow a gasket probably. But
All right, I have one more question, and I'm going to open it up to the audience. You said to start where you can and do what you can. If someone wants to start somewhere but they don't know where to start, can you recommend ways that we can get involved in advancing social justice where we are?
one of the simplest things that you can do is register to vote and then vote, right? So you can do that. And you can start small. You can vote in your school board election and work your way up if you need to. But we have a somewhat important election coming up in November that you might want to participate in. But registering to vote, that's a baby step. Easy to do, doesn't take a lot of time, and then follow through with actually voting at the opportunity.
Are there any organizations that people should be involved in, check out, to help them engage in acting? Besides Greenwood Rising.
Yeah, there are a couple organizations that come immediately to mind that I'm familiar with. One is Tulsa Metropolitan Ministry, which is an ecumenical ministerial group that does a lot of social justice related work. The other is the Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice, which does social justice work, a lot of dialogue, conversational work, and so forth.
Yeah, great. If you are interested in knowing more about Tulsa Metropolitan Ministries, there's a board member over here. Raise your hand up.
Doug.
There you go. You can ask him all your questions. All right, what questions do you have out there, my friends? Anything? I'll bring you the mic so people can hear you.
Okay, this is kind of a two-parter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were not raised in Tulsa, is that correct? Or were you raised in Tulsa?
No.
Okay, so my question is, what originally brought you to Tulsa, and then what made you stay?
Well, Tony Garris can tell you what brought me to Tulsa. I came to work for a law firm and Tony was there at Connor Winters Law Firm in 1984. And I stayed. I don't know why I stayed. It just worked. And one of the first things I did, after about 2 years here, I went through Leadership Tulsa, which was a great thing for me because it exposed me to the broader community. I wanted to be engaged. Dennis Larson, the current police chief, was in my class at Leadership Tulsa, like in 1986. And then I guess the other thing that kept me here is that when I started learning the history about the Greenwood District, it was because I was asked to write a regular editorial column for the Oklahoma Eagle, the black newspaper, and I was asked to do a series about the Greenwood District. That's when I really got interested in that history. And I became increasingly interested, and it just makes sense for me to be here. My office is in the Greenwood District, so now, I mean, I've been there for at least 10 years. And so Tulsa is attractive, I think, for a number of reasons. One is the sort of mid-sized city that it is. I used to say Tulsa is very much navigable, so it works in that regard. And again, the history is remarkable. The philanthropy is on par with any other city in the United States. Those things are really important to me.
Of all the times that when you look back at all the things that have happened and the things that you've been involved in, what would you say for you is has been most successful for you? You know, where do you see the real impact that you've made with social justice among all of the things that you've been involved in?
So one of the things that I did for 15 years, I directed a summer youth camp called Anytown, Oklahoma. It's a statewide camp. It's a diversity camp for teenagers. And we would have 50 to 60 teenagers pretty much every year. And again, I did this for 15 years. And it is a truly remarkable model. Those teenagers come there grudgingly often, but they leave transformed and truly amazing. And so we started the camp in 1994. So some of the people that went through that camp are friends of mine now, and they're in their 30s and 40s and so forth, because I'm of a certain age. But they're doctors and lawyers and whatever. They still talk about what a profound impact that summer experience as a 16, 17-year-old had on them. So I think directing that camp for those 15 years is one of the most important things that I've done.
Will you talk in this so the recording can hear?
I'd like to follow up on that question because I'm not familiar with the camp, but you talk about so transformational for the students that attended. What was it about the camp that was transforming for them?
So the camp is designed to bring together diverse students, geographically diverse, racially diverse, ethnically diverse, religiously diverse, to get them to understand their shared humanity is the simplest way to say it. And they do that by experiencing one another in a very structured way. And they get an opportunity to share in a safe environment things that are important to them and about them. They get an opportunity to learn about others. They get an opportunity to present about themselves and their culture to other people and their culture. And through that, they bond tremendously. and they develop an empathy and compassion, love for one another, and they are transformed. I mean, I won't use any names, but I remember one of the earlier camps, a guy who I knew, his son went to the camp. And he said to me after the camp, the father, he said, I don't know what you guys did, but every time my son talks about that camp, he cries. And I said, it's a powerful, powerful experience that touches people on a deep and meaningful and enduring level. It's just that good of a model. Very structured. Yes. There is a variant of the model for adults. It's called Our Town.
Really? It's kind of like the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, right? It's a lot of the teaching DEI stuff.
It is. But it starts off with introspection, helping these teenagers think about and understand who they are and what's important to them, what culture they draw on, what other people are experiencing in the cultures that they draw on, and all the things that we have in common. And how do we, at the end of the camp, how do we marshal our collective agency and resources to confront some of the challenges that have been holding us back?
It sounds like it uses the No Care Act model a little bit.
Not directly, but yes. Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm going to have you out. Yeah, I know.
Is there anything we could attend that you teach?
Yeah, I'm not teaching anything right now. No, but I have. I've taught classes. I've actually taught classes at OU on the Greenwood District and the massacre and other topics, and taught the law school and all that. Most recently, I taught business law in the master's program at OSU for 10 years here in Tulsa, but I'm not teaching right now.
Do you know of anywhere, if there is an adult who really wants some DEI education, a really like go-to place, easy place to go and kind of start that journey?
So you could start with Mosaic. Mosaic is a group that I helped start through the Tulsa Chamber that is really primarily for business folks who are interested in DEI and who are DEI professionals. But Mosaic meetings are open to the public. There are often speakers at those meetings. They're mostly in the morning, once a month, and you could go there. You could look on the Chamber's website for Mosaic and sort of explore whether you're interested and maybe go to that. There are events that are held by, I know TMM has events that are open to the public. OCCJ, the Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice, has events that are open to the public that would get you at least engaged with other people who are interested in learning more about DEI.
Yeah, one of your 10 ways was speak truth, I think you said. The word truth is kind of a weighted term in a religious context. So can you kind of explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah, so I guess truth in that context refers to, if you're talking about something that is personal to you, that you believe, that you're being authentic, and truth in a broader sense has, I think, the connotation of something that is objectively and empirically true, that can be proven or that can be demonstrated through evidence.
I noticed in the book that there are some questions at the end of each chapter. There are points to ponder. As we start our book study, are there any additional resources for questions or ways to deep dive into all of this material? I'm a participant.
I don't. I mean, I didn't develop any questions beyond those, but I think a quick Google search, you could come up with all sorts of core questions around the broad topic of social justice.
Oh,
I found something in studying God's Word and how our faith can help us. As you know, social justice has moved at a glacial rate. I'll never forget, several years ago, a well-known civil rights leader, I don't know the name, and he made the comment, "I am sick and tired of being sick and tired."
It's a she, Fannie Lou Hamer. Yeah.
Who was it?
Fannie Lou Hamer.
Okay. So, and there are other things too, social justice and the conflict in the Middle East. I'd like to see that go away. There's been war there 75 years. And so what I have found in Scripture is that we don't need to see results. If we know we're doing what God wants us to do, that's really all that matters. We need to leave the details to Him. We must use the gifts and the opportunities He has given us, but we're not responsible for all the results. And so that's helped me to feel less discouraged when things move slowly. I had a cousin die. I prayed for her for 46 years, never, ever saw any progress. And a few weeks ago, I heard that 2 hours before she died, she wanted to pray.
so keep going.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I think keeps me going is it's related to sort of the glacial pace and the chronic nature of the issues. Dr. King, who has many, many great quotes, but one of them that I think is profound is, "We must accept finite disappointments, but we must never lose infinite hope."
Will you say it one more time?
We must accept finite disappointments, but we must never lose infinite hope.
All right, last chance. Well, if you don't want to speak into the microphone, Mr. Johnson, you have just a little bit of time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anybody wants to come get a book and get
You
it
want a book?
signed and
Yeah,
have a little
that's right.
conversation. Thank you so much for coming to Tulsa, for staying in Tulsa, for being a leader in Tulsa, for teaching Tulsa our own history, and for help leading the way in the social justice movement here and helping us know how we can better know, care, and act to move forward as well. Thank you so much for being at Fellowship. We just really appreciate the time you've given us tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thanks for spending your evening with us. Like we said, books are here for $20. We'll get you, do you have a pen? We'll get you a pen. Oh, he's got a pen. He's ready to go. There's coffee and some snacks out in the commons if you want to hang out and chit-chat a little bit and have your turn with Mr. Johnson. We'd love for you to do that. And thank you so much for a lovely evening.